Hey guys, welcome to part two of my episode with Kevin Owens. On this episode, we both dive in a little bit deeper into our experiences at Dreamglade doing ayahuasca, and talk about the logistics of it, how it actually happened, and what happened during those experiences. And I'm really, really excited to be able to share this with you. So if you didn't catch part one, be sure to go back and check that out and enjoy part two. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, which means 25, 26.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I decided I don't look for another job. I just continue as long as I'm happy in the job.
Yeah.
And I did that for the last 4 years. So from 2018 to this year. I was working in this restaurant. I was promoted after a year to be the restaurant manager or the service manager. And yeah, but not only the trauma from my sales, but many other things came up during those 4 years, and I tried to handle them in the way I knew with the tools I had, and it didn't really work that way because I came to a point where I didn't see purpose in life. Like, I was constantly asking this question, like, why am I alive? What am I living for? Like, even though I was like happy in my job and I was healthy and everything, I didn't get the point of like, actually, why am I alive? Why am I have to deal with different shit every day? Why do I have to struggle?
Yeah.
Why do I have to be sad at certain points? Why
So you're
do I
very
get
presently,
angry?
so you're very presently feeling all of these, what sound like bad thoughts.
Yeah. And yeah, then the pandemic hit, and 2020, and I had a lot of time at home. The restaurant was closed for 6-7 months, and this started like I had more time to sit with those feelings and to ask all those questions, and it just got me to a point where I didn't see why am I alive. So it didn't make any sense for me anymore. And yeah.
So at this point, it's pandemic hitting. You've been working in this job now for, I guess, about 2 years. Obviously not feeling great about yourself. And then when did you then decide, okay, I need to do something about this? Was there like one moment that, like it all kind of came crashing down and you're like, oh shit? Or was it kind of a slow buildup when you're like, okay, how are we now going to fix this?
Yeah, first for me it was separated, like my feelings and my thoughts and my job. So there was like no connection to it. And it was like slowly I was like asking more questions and going deeper. And then it took me like maybe a year, and then I got sick, or like I needed to have surgery because of an abscess. So, and things didn't went well during the surgery, so it took me like, I need a second surgery, and I was like sitting home for like 2 months, and then I kind of got the same feelings like I had at the end of my sales job, that this might make me sick together with all those questions and feelings I had before. So it became a combination of everything. And so I decided, I might need to change things again in life, right? I'm not happy at the moment. So, and I didn't do anything to change it in the last year.
Yeah.
And
a lot of people, not to anyone's fault is the thing is, the world kind of fucking shut down. It was hard for anybody to figure out what was going on. And I think, collectively a lot of people ended up feeling, now obviously nobody felt the same. Nobody ever feels the same as anybody else, but there's kind of this collective consciousness, which I think I now believe in, that a lot of people in the world are tapping into the same frequencies a lot of the time, and that was definitely a major theme during the pandemic of what the fuck are we doing? We've been doing something the same way for so long, and this was the first thing that has come along and made everybody, change. We had to change. There was no other way, and obviously it was incredibly difficult, and we were able to obviously sort of come out, but things had to change on the other side. We couldn't just go right back to normal. And so that's when you obviously finally are thinking, okay, let's change. Now, did you know right then and there that how you were going to do this? I guess how did you then tackle that?
I didn't want to be as radical as I was like 6 years ago, after I was just like quitting my sales job and then figuring things out. I wanted to do it like
maybe I should still make a little bit of money in the meantime.
And just in a more adult approach, like figuring things out first. But I just knew like things are making me sick. It doesn't need to be like the job specifically, but I just need a change, because if I'm not changing anything, I'm just feeling more unhappy. Mm-hmm. So, and this was at like October, November of 2021.
Yeah.
And then like in January, I had a very interesting dream about ayahuasca.
Did you know about ayahuasca at this time? How much did you know about ayahuasca before this dream?
I heard about ayahuasca like 6-7 years ago.
Yeah.
And I looked into it and I was like, no, it's probably not for me. Doesn't look fun, right? And then I had this weird dream, and then I was opening my YouTube, and then there were random recommendations for like podcasts and stuff about ayahuasca. I was like, okay, interesting, let's look into it. And from that on, I did a very intense research on what ayahuasca is, how it can it help me, can it help my certain situation, and
just to pause right here. It's hearing you say this, and I've been on the Reddit forums. I've watched a bunch of YouTube videos, and it's a really common theme that a lot of people talk about, that like they don't choose to do ayahuasca. It's you hear this calling from Mother Ayahuasca, Grandmother Ayahuasca, whatever the fuck you call her, respectfully, to do, like, it starts the healing process with ayahuasca specifically. It starts well before you end up doing it, and well before you take these retreats. And I think that it's important that before anybody does something like this, to either sort of have that experience where you start thinking about it and, you know, understand it. Because I mean, you're never really ready until you do it. I'll say that as well. You're never ready. Even when you have that calling and you're like, yes, I'm doing this. But like for anybody that ever, you know, listens to this and is like, oh, that sounds interesting, I'm just going to go do it. Like, don't just do it on a whim.
Please don't
please don't just do it on a fucking whim. That's where bad things can start happening. And it's important that while we talk about these, you know, really, really great healing practices, that people also understand that there is a flip side to this and it can go wrong. It rarely does, but, you know, doing things if you don't really want to, or you don't have that just feeling inside of you that this is right, there's no need to force yourself to do anything like this. You know, only do what you're ready.
Yeah, exactly. And on the other side,
do you remember what the dream was?
Yeah, I had this same exact dream 2 times. One was like January 2022, and then I had it like 5-6 months later, the exact same dream, and it was like me in a like first person perspective, because when we talk about dreams, sometimes it's not always like that.
Sometimes you watch yourself.
Yeah.
Dreams are crazy. I could go on. Yeah. I love dreaming.
And I was sitting on a bonfire with 3 other entities, which now I understand they were just like different parts of myself.
Yeah.
And then there was like a forest, and then there was coming this lady out of the forest, and she was like just covered in plants, or just being a bunch of plants and flowers. You couldn't see her face, like, and yeah, she was like talking to those 3 entities, and they like kind of disappeared, and then that was just sitting me there, and then she was like, come with me, and we were walking into the forest, and the dream ended.
Wow.
And yeah.
And so that right, just from what it sounds like, I mean, that's Mother Ayahuasca telling you, come with me.
Yeah. Like, first time
it's hard to not answer that call.
Yeah, especially after the second time, it was like, oh yeah, I got it.
Okay, I'm coming.
Yeah, I'm on my way. Yeah, but to like get to the end of this, I did my research, and then I got to a point where I quit my job, and I planned. I didn't have like a real plan again, but I got to a point where it got unhealthy. Just stay there and don't make a change.
Is it just like that same negative cycle from the beginning of just, you realize you don't like this, you're just doing it, and it's getting worse and worse and worse every single day that you wake up.
Yeah, and I thought just like, instead of continuing for a couple of more months and getting sick or whatever, I just like, no, that's it. And then I was like, again, what to do, right? And before I quit my job, I did some planning, because I wanted to go back to India. Because every time I went to India, I came back a happier person. So I thought, oh, why not go to India? And then I was like, yeah, I'm going to spend 3 months in India. I'm going to work there again. And maybe from India do some other countries in Southeast Asia and travel around and figure things out. And I didn't had any vacation for the last 4 years, so I had some money saved up, and I was like, yeah, I can travel for 3 months in India or Southeast Asia, and it's gonna be fine. And basically, a couple of days before my flight to India, I had this dream again, and I was like very conflicted to like, should I really go to India or should I finally answer the calling, right? But I was like, yeah, I already booked my flights and everything, and so I went to India, and on the second day in India, I met someone in my hostel, and he was like very interested in my Vipassana experience, and then he was like, oh yeah, before I came to India, I went to Peru, and I also had a very intense experience. And yeah, he did ayahuasca, and we talked about that, and I was like, okay, I can't like, I can't run away anymore. It's just like
it's just gonna keep coming up in your life, and just all these people you meet in these dreams.
Yeah,
you're
exactly,
like, okay, she's chasing me now.
Yeah, I can't ignore it anymore, and she's just like, answer my call. Yeah, and then I just ended up spending 5 weeks in India, and
yeah, I was gonna ask. So what's the timeline here now? Is this like, May, June, sometime around then?
This was the last week of June. I went to India, and the only fixed plan I had in India was like being there for 3 weeks, visiting some people from my previous time in India, and then do a 14-day yoga and meditation retreat. Very chilled, talking, phone, everything was allowed. Like, no Vipassana. And
chill.
But I knew that I don't want to stay in India after that. So the week before my meditation and yoga retreat, I planned my trip to Peru. I was deciding on a retreat, which was ultimately Dreamglade, and I got in touch with them, and I was talking with them and planning everything. So before my yoga retreat started, I booked my 2-week retreat at Dreamglade for September, and I booked my flight back to Germany because I had to like repack my bag and prepare for Peru.
Yeah.
So in the first week of August, I went back to Germany and prepared for my trip to Peru.
Okay. And so now we can get into that. So we can. So it's now September. You're now arriving at Dreamglade. So let me also say this. So I arrived at Dreamglade on a Monday. I was staying for 6 days, 5 nights, 3 ceremonies. Ceremonies are on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You arrive on Wednesday, so you arrived later than everyone else.
Exactly,
just because of the way that the timing worked out. And so you get there on Wednesday, and then also too, just so people know, the way that this works is you arrive at Dreamglade specifically. This is how it works there. You arrive there on a ceremony night. You arrive there at like 4 p.m. maybe. It's late in the afternoon. Ceremony starts at 8 p.m. You've got almost zero time from when you get there to when you do the first ceremony. So they're just gonna throw you right in. And like I just remember like, oh, like the new guy's here. And I remember saying, you, I didn't really say anything. I'm like, good luck, man.
Yeah. Oh man, like, yeah. And for me, I booked 14 days, 13 nights, 6 ceremonies. And the reason was just like I did a
I wish
10-day.
I wish I would have done that.
Yeah. Like for me, I thought a week might not be enough. Like not that 3 ceremonies aren't enough, right? But
and, just to be clear, you do not need 2 weeks. Doing 1 week is enough. And I don't want to say that I wish I would have done that because I didn't get enough out of it. It's just that now that I've talked to other people and also me knowing myself, and since I've been back, I think I would have enjoyed being there an extra week. Also, just to hang out with my buddy Kevin.
Yeah, I would have loved that. You should have seen my second week of ceremonies.
Man, so you get there on Wednesday. For now we can go into both of ours. So this is your first ceremony. What do you have an intention? So like you've obviously heard this call. Mother Ayahuasca has been calling to you, and you're like, okay, fine, I'll go. You're now here. You have these feelings still of being like, sadness and sort of just a genuine, you don't know what you're doing. You feel lost. Are those feelings still there even after you were just in India, or did they at least start to quiet down a little bit?
Like after being in India, after doing the yoga and meditation course, and after traveling around, and in my time between India and Peru, I had some time with friends and family, and we went hiking, so I could really like clear my mind, and I was like very calm coming to Peru, and it just felt good, just felt like a right thing to do. And but yeah, those feelings were there, of course. And I didn't have like a huge shopping list going into my ayahuasca retreat and having like 20 things I wanted to work on. The only thing, it was just an idea I had, was if I could reconnect with myself, and I consider myself not only mind and body, or ego and body. So I thought if I could see who I really am, everything, mind, body, emotional body, energy body, spiritual body, whatever layer you wanna name it. From every teaching has their own name or their own concept. But just to name a few of them. And I thought if I could reconnect with myself and asking the right questions, I could solve all those traumas, and maybe even solve traumas I'm not aware of. Was it more so just the traumas, I guess, that you're thinking of at this point, of basically of just not being able to connect with yourself, like you feeling disconnected from all of these parts of you? Are those the traumas that you're talking about, or at this point are there specific traumas that you're like, oh, like I know that I have a bad relationship because of this and I need to heal that, or is it still just more general? It got more specific because I was preparing for the retreat, so I was like really thinking about what I want to get out of it, and where I am at this point, because I need something to compare with after my retreat, right? So so it was not only the feeling of disconnectedness with myself, but with everything around me.
Like you're just floating through life.
I didn't have like a serious romantic relationship in the last couple of years. I didn't make new friends. I distanced myself from family, and probably it was because I didn't love myself. I didn't feel connected with myself, so I wasn't able to connect with anyone else. Now I know that. You
didn't know that at the time.
I didn't know that at the time, right?
Also, too, I want to pause really quick just so everybody also knows. Kevin, before going on this ayahuasca retreat, has also never done any other psychedelic before.
Oh yeah, so good thing to know. Yeah,
so
right.
this because I get that question of people like, oh, like is it okay if ayahuasca is my first time? And I'm like, my response then, and honestly my response still is, you're kind of fucking crazy if you're just gonna jump right into this. You can do it again when you feel the calling, do it. But if you don't feel the strong calling for ayahuasca, maybe start with something else. Maybe take a little microdose of shrooms and see how you feel. And again, this is not medical advice. Please, nobody ever take my advice and say that this person on the internet told them to do it. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, but
yeah.
It's definitely worth noting because I've had all these intense psychedelic experiences before, and then ayahuasca came up, and I guess I mean even kind of just going into the background of that, we might have to make this fucking 3 parts, man. I don't know if we're gonna get into everything, but I first heard about ayahuasca right at the beginning of the pandemic. That was when I had even heard, like, I had been doing acid and mushrooms now for 2 years, 3 years maybe, I don't know. And I hadn't even heard of ayahuasca. And then it came up on like a podcast that I was listening to, and I'm not a person who listens to podcasts. Now I listen to more of them, especially given that I now have one. But at the time, I just, for whatever reason, listened to this one. The guy talked about ayahuasca, and it was just planted in my mind. I thought, that sounds interesting. I didn't really think too much of it, and it was never like I need to go do that. And then for me, it was just slowly over time, it would just randomly pop into my head. Like it was never a dream or anything like that, but it was, as I continue to think about just my own healing process and really just the want for me to want to understand how my own mind works and understand why I think the way I think and do things the way I do, that I just started thinking more and more of ayahuasca. And it was last year, I was working in the sales job. I was not happy. And when I finally quit that to get another sales job, which I like way better, which I like way better. But it was around that time too that I'm like, part of me quitting my old job and getting this new job next year, I'm going on this trip. Like it was such a strong sense to me that like, this is something that I need to go do. And I told my new boss at the beginning, this is in December of 2021. I'm like, by the way, sometime next year, I didn't have anything planned out. Sometime next year, I'm going to take 2 weeks off to go to Peru. And so I at least told him that. So when I eventually planned out the details, it wasn't going to be a surprise. But it definitely wasn't like, the strong calling, like, for you, where it was pretty damn clear. It was just slowly over time, I was like, this is something that, I'm gonna need to experience. And I'm not quite sure where I went off topic there. But back to how we got to Dreamglade. We're now there. Yeah. You've got your sort of, intentions to reconnect with yourself. My original intention before I went was just to feel unconditional self-love. That was like my first thing, is that this is what I want to feel. And that was, usually like you make an intention before you drink each ceremony. And for whatever reason though, like the facilitators there, they pretty much told us like, you guys don't really need to make an intention. You guys should just be open to the experience. So I never actually ended up making that my intention before any of the ceremonies.
Yeah.
But so like every time my intention was just be open to the experience and let Mother Ayahuasca show me what you need to show me, was what I would say to myself and what I would say to her before I drank. And ironically, in a very roundabout way, I did end up actually feeling that unconditional self-love, but I didn't even know it while I was there. I didn't realize that until a week after I had been back that like, oh fuck, she did like that just happened.
Yeah. So just a quick question, like, what created your intention? It's like very specific to feel unconditional self-love. Like,
that's a good question. I didn't know why at the time to the extent that I know now. Now things are a lot clearer, but there was always a part of me growing up where I felt like I just had to do more, where I wasn't doing enough, and I still do feel that way a little bit. It's just now I can recognize it. Now I'm working to unfuck that part of, you know, that way of thinking. But like, you know, it was always that, and for whatever reason I heard of that, and you do your research online on Reddit, and that's a pretty popular one that comes up.
Okay.
And when it did came, you know, when I did read it or see it or whatever, it just resonated with me right there, because like I think I thought I loved myself. You know, I really did. I loved who I was now. Like I loved myself now, and I could confidently say that. And if you would have asked me beforehand, you know, do you love yourself? I would have been like, absolutely. Now I realize I didn't love all parts of myself. Now I realize that I only loved who I was right then and there. I didn't love everything else. And so it was more just that sounds cool. Like to fully unconditionally, like, I don't know if I've ever felt that before. So it was more like, I want that deeper love and experience. And love is also a concept again, for me, it comes up every single time I take a psychedelic, whether it's mushrooms or whether it's acid. The concept of love always comes up, of loving other people, loving the earth, loving the present moment. It's like this just great feeling that's inside. And I think love is really just one of the universal truths that we have in the world that needs to be a guiding star for whatever we wish to do. If you don't do it with love, it's now I think it's not worth doing. If you're if it's something you really, really want to do, if you're not doing it with love, don't do it. You gotta do some shit sometimes. Like sometimes you just gotta fucking roll your sleeves up and do some shit you don't want to do. But it's the overall guiding star of your life needs to be with that love. And it was just something I'm like, I don't know if the fact that I could say I didn't know if I've ever experienced that made me believe that I needed to make that an intention, just to know what it felt like. And
makes sense.
So that was my intention going into it. And my therapist was like, "Oh yeah, that's a good intention. You should." that sounds good. Good job. And so, but yeah, so my first ceremony, I'll talk about that first, and then you can talk about yours. And we're probably not going to have enough time to get into everything, so I'm gonna really hit on kind of just like the broader points that came up. I've also already written all of mine in full detail, so if anyone's interested in reading that, go to tripsitting.blog, and you could read all of the details, which Kevin so kindly found on Reddit, which I rarely go on, which is so funny.
I just stumbled over it yesterday, and I read almost every post, and guys, check it out. Awesome blog.
Dude, I was geeking out when you're like, "Hey man, I found your blog." I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, I just happened to be on the ayahuasca subreddit." And I also too, I need you to understand, this is my very first post on Reddit ever. Like I've never once successfully posted on Reddit without it being immediately taken down by a moderator. And so this was my one post that Kevin happened to read in Germany right when I posted it, and I had never sent him the blog. But so my first night, what the overarching lesson was not love for myself. It was what does it feel like to love other people? What is that like? And truly love people for who they are and not for what I want them to be. And that all came from, you know, this girl that I've been talking to, that, you know, I think I was feeling those feelings of like falling in love, where, you know, they're kind of all you can think about, and, you know, you just want to be around them and next to them. And then, you know, we kind of stopped talking, and I even said, you know, to Mother Ayahuasca before I went into this, I'm like, I don't want to think about her. Obviously she's got different plans. She's like, no, you're gonna learn this.
She doesn't give a fuck what you want.
Nope, she does not give a fuck. She's gonna make you learn. If you're ready to learn the lesson, Mother Ayahuasca is gonna help you learn that lesson. If you're not ready for things, she's never gonna put you in a situation that you're not ready for. I really do believe that. But so I thought of, you know, this, and it was basically like, you know, thinking of how I feel around her and all that, and then it just kind of had me question, really, is this true love, or is this being in love? And there's a difference between those two. I think being in love is a much more sort of selfish feeling. You love what they do for you, what they make you feel, and, you know, that feeling that you have around them. It's like you're really high, and being really high is really fun. It's awesome.
Yeah, but it's just on a surface level, right?
Yeah, it's just a surface level, and it basically I then felt, no, this is what true love is, like loving people for who they are, and who they, you know, for not because they give you something or make you feel a certain way or spend time with you or anything like that. It's just loving them for who they are. And I didn't do that at the time with this particular person. It was more of just teaching me, this is what it feels like if you want to get there. And so now I can say that that's what I feel for not just her, but a lot of my friends and a lot of past, you know, relationships that I've had that never actually ended up turning into relationships. But it was that difference of now being able to recognize, okay, this is being in love or falling in love versus this is what actual love is. I was chasing that other feeling, that high, thinking that was love. And logically, I knew the difference between the two. It's not like this was fucking brand new. It's just I felt it in a way that I never felt it before. And also just so much joy and, you know, beauty for the world, and surrounded by this feeling of love. And it was really cool. It was also a really easy ceremony for me, and something that just made me feel like, damn, I fucking got this. Like, this is gonna be an easy couple days. It's gonna be an easy couple days. I was just laughing my ass off, feeling love, and I'm like, damn, I was, you know, I don't got any fucking deep ass traumas. I've already dealt with that shit. But you know, more on that. But either way, what was, I guess, the first overall lesson that you learned from ayahuasca? Did it happen on the first night for you, or is it more the second night? I definitely remember your second night, but
oh yeah,
what was the first overarching lesson that she taught you?
Like the first ceremony, it was like very settled. I didn't feel much from the medicine, or I thought so. And I think you already talked about in your blog about this, but at Dreamglade they offer you 2 doses, and probably at other retreats they do as well. So after like 2 hours, if you don't feel much from the medicine, you get another cup or another glass. And yeah, first night it was just very settled. I could feel it was more physically. My body felt heavy, relaxed, no visions, no visuals. And yeah, like you talked about it, the first ceremony, it's just a very stressful day. You arrive there at like 4 p.m. at the center, and because I arrived on a Wednesday, there was also the sauna.
Oh yeah,
before,
you got right into the sauna.
So I just arrived there, and I had to throw my bag into my tambu in my little hut where I was staying, get my swim shorts, and I went into the sauna, and I actually met you guys in the sauna, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, hey, I'm the new guy, like everyone's half naked, and like, yeah. And yeah, from there it was just taking a shower and going to the Maloka, and then I got a 1 hour prep talk, and the ceremony was already starting, right? So I was like very nervous. I had I wouldn't say I had huge expectations, but I did expect something, right?
We all try to pretend like we don't have expectations, but we all have insanely huge expectations for this.
But yeah, now I know I had like huge expectations, and
I thought I was the same way. I was like, I'm not going to expect anything, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, I want this to blow my fucking mind.
Yeah, exactly. Because you always read the crazy stories. Like no one is making a Reddit post for it like, oh, I didn't feel anything, and there's no point in making a post like that, right? So you always read about the crazy visions and whatever.
I had no visions, no real visuals in any of my ceremonies. I know you did, other people did.
Yeah.
So again, it's different for everyone. Mother Ayahuasca shows you what you need, not what you want.
Yeah, exactly.
That was a big lesson.
But yeah, my first ceremony, I had this intention coming to Dreamglade, but for my first ceremony, I just went with, I kindly asked for healing, and that's what I ended up doing every ceremony.
Yeah.
Like, I always...
Just for general healing.
Yeah, and in further ceremonies, I realized the things I was thinking about during the day had always an effect on my ceremony. So she was considering things I was thinking about or I wanted to work on, even though I just went in with, I kindly ask for healing, right? So, because, like you said, you get what you need, not what you want, but she's listening to you all the time, Mother Ayahuasca. So, first ceremony, I was sitting there. I had already 2 half-shot glasses, 2 doses of ayahuasca. I didn't feel much, and I was just waiting for like, when is it getting more, right? Because I had those huge expectations, and I was waiting for like a crazy trip, but basically nothing happened. And and the next day I
no like emotions or anything either. Really, it was just you did purge though, right?
I purged pretty quick, both doses, or like first dose after like 30 minutes, second dose after 30 minutes.
You lucky duck.
And but very underwhelming.
Yeah. You're like I got 2 weeks of this shit. Are you kidding me?
And I was like, oh, what did I do wrong? That was like one of the first thoughts.
I see the connection now.
Yeah. So I was blaming myself. What did I do wrong?
Is that a theme that's come up in your life before, Kevin?
Yeah. But the next day, after some talks, I understood what happened there. And it wasn't my fault, but I was just holding back and repressing so many thoughts and emotions, and I had to like open up to the medicine in order for her to work with me. So I wasn't open, I was closed, I had my wall up, and she couldn't get through, I would say. So that was my first ceremony.
And so that was that was my second ceremony, your first ceremony.
Yeah.
And that was my night where I was just in pure pain and agony, wanting it to fucking be over for like 3.5, 4 hours before, you know, the facilitators of Dreamglade, Stace, Drew, Jess, incredible people. They helped me through it, and you know, basically I was thinking that I need to purge, and once I purge, then I'm gonna have this crazy high flying experience, and I'm gonna trip balls in a jungle. And this is what I wanted the whole time. And once, you know, basically that was just never happening. Like, my stomach hurt, I was just in pain. I just wanted to purge, and she wasn't letting me purge no matter how many times I tried. I tried pulling trig, which I've done so many times before from my years of binge drinking in college, and I tried smoking the mapacho and swallowing the smoke, and that didn't work, and nothing was working until they finally told me that, you know, one, I was asking Mother Ayahuasca to show me, you know, what she needed to show me, and they said, maybe you can't rely on Mother Ayahuasca to show you, maybe you have to go find it yourself. And I was like, fuck, that's good advice. Shit.
They had always very good advice. Right?
You guys are right, and I'm pissed about it. But okay,
Yeah.
I'll go try that. And then, you know, I mentioned to Stace, I'm like, I'm so uncomfortable right now. And he's like, well, then stop trying to fight the discomfort and just get comfortable with it. I was judging the discomfort as bad. Like, I needed to purge and the discomfort would end. And so it's like, it's crazy that these emotional things that you feel manifest themselves as physical ailments as well. And so this discomfort that I now understand that I probably felt my entire life was manifesting itself inside of me as the stomach pain. And so I got comfortable with that, and, you know, was basically just throwing darts at a board, is thinking, what emotion could this be? And just sitting there understanding it, not trying to fight it or purge it out. And eventually it was shame and guilt that came up. And you know, when I was finally able to start purging that out, it was literally like getting out all of that, like, shame and guilt that I've been holding inside of me, and understanding that I need to just forgive myself for everything. And it wasn't specific stuff, it was just over time this accumulation of stuff. And what I didn't know at the time too was that right there was basically the tool to then feel the unconditional self-love. I didn't feel it at the time, I didn't notice it. I didn't even have any sort of emotional release right then and there. I mean, the ceremony had already been going on for 4.5 hours by the time I was done with all of that shit. And so it wasn't until the next morning when I was writing in my journal that I just bawled my eyes out. It was just so much coming up, and I didn't even understand it then. It wasn't until I came back home and wrote about it again on the blog that I thought about, you know, those feelings of shame and guilt, and finally forgiving myself and treating myself with grace, that I'm like, oh fuck, like, this is what self-love is. It's that feeling of, like, my whole life I felt like I wasn't enough, and so I've internalized all these feelings and thought that I deserved it. Like, I deserved to feel this shame and hold it in and all this pain, and just couldn't let it go. And letting it go, that right there is the act of loving yourself. And it's not like now all of a sudden I just wake up and I fucking love myself. There's still a lot of shit I need to continue to let out. It did not all come out in the ceremonies. And they also said that most of the work that you guys do with ayahuasca is not going to be done in the ceremonies. It's going to be done afterwards, you know, when you guys get home, and it could take weeks and months and years to keep doing it. But I mean, Mother Ayahuasca showed me what it was in a way that had never been so clear before, that there were these feelings inside. It was essentially, I've been living in denial my whole life, that, like, I thought I dealt with these things that I never actually dealt with. And she's like, nope, this is here.
Yeah, it sounds very familiar.
Yeah, so let's talk about your third ceremony, or your second ceremony now. So that was my second one. Your second one.
Yeah, so I should start with the day before, because that's where my second ceremony started, right? Preparing for the second ceremony and trying to learn the lessons from the first ceremony. So yeah, the day in between was very chilled because you had nothing to do, like physically, but it was like very stressful mentally and emotionally for me. And yeah, so after the first ceremony, I talked with Stacy, and we talked about what happened in the first ceremony, why I didn't feel anything, and I was telling him or asking him, like, what did I do wrong, right? So the same question I had during the ceremony, and he was like, yeah, you did nothing wrong, but there are things you can do that might help for your second ceremony and start your healing journey with the medicine. So, and you talked about this, like emotions manifesting in physical pain. So that's what I had for many years, like neck and back pain.
Same.
And
still do.
Yeah,
but it's a little better.
Same. Yeah, it's better, but it's still there. And Stacy was like, yeah, it's 90% of the time your physical pain comes from your emotional pain. So you should start by exploring this area, exploring your emotions, and writing down events in your past where you felt like negative emotions, and not judging them, like similar to my meditation technique, like observing them as they are, letting them be, accepting that I felt sad or I felt anger or rage in this moment, in this situation in the past, and also letting it go because it's in the past and it's not serving me anymore. It's harming me, actually. So I was doing this for the day in between the ceremony, and on the day of my second ceremony was writing down random events of the past which were attached to negative emotions. And I didn't cry by writing it down, but I could feel those emotions, and I was accepting them. And I think that was just started this wall I built up to crumble down a little bit and opening me up for my second ceremony. And I felt much better going into ceremony. We finally had a 1 hour quietness, right? Before the ceremony, because no explanation for any new people. It was just like from 7 to 8 sitting there in silence, and I meditated, and I felt prepared for the ceremony. I felt much more open than my first ceremony, and again, same intention: show me whatever you want to show me, kindly ask for healing. And it started quite slow again, and at this time I wasn't like waiting for more, or I wasn't judging it. I was just like lying there. I thought I might see some patterns, but like even during the day when you look up on the ceiling of the Maloka, it looks trippy.
Yeah.
So like
you're like trying to see these patterns. You're like, am I tripping or what's going on?
Yeah. So I wasn't quite sure, but I could feel this heaviness on my body again. I felt warm, I felt good, I felt comfortable. I could feel my energy body raising up a little bit, and I could feel like this energy around me. And I could feel like a energy moving around in my lower back. And first it was weird, but I was just like, let's just let it move in there, right?
Yeah.
It didn't feel good, but it didn't feel bad either. So I was like, yeah,
I felt
interesting.
I felt that in my neck, because I have a ton of neck pain and like tension there. I think I mean that same ceremony too. That was when that happened. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because we had very similar experiences in this specific ceremony. Yeah, so I felt this energy in my lower back, and I was just observing it, kind of meditating on it, just letting it be there. And then Stacy came up and asked me like how I'm feeling, and I told them that everything's good, very settled. And I purged already, so he gave me a second dose. And like the second dose, it already felt different. I was drinking it and I felt very comfortable with it, like no crumbling in the stomach, no heat like the other times before. Normally it was like very hard to keep it in. So, but this time I just had it and was like easy to keep it in. And I was sitting back against the wall and just observing this energy. It was still there in my back. And I was just like letting go and was open to whatever happens next. And if nothing happens next, nothing happens next, right? So,
yeah.
Yeah, but
something happened.
Something happened, yeah. So, yeah, like after 30 minutes, I felt I needed to purge or needed to vomit. And this purge was so different. It was not just stuff coming out of my stomach. It was stuff coming out of my entire body. It was like slowly building its way up.
Like emotional
energy, physical stuff. So everything was like building up, and the purge was like so different. Like my jaw, it was like when a snake is like hanging out the jaw to eat something like bigger than a snake, right?
Yeah.
So my jaw felt like that, like wide open, and energy coming out of my eyes, my mouth, like my whole face. So yeah, this purge was already very different from just vomiting before, I would say. And then after that, I had to lie down. I felt so exhausted and so tired from that purge. And I think that was the point Mother Ayahuasca needed me to be. Like total surrender on every level. Just like exhausted, and I was lying there. I could move, but I didn't want to. I was just lying down, exhausted, and within like 5 minutes after the purge, it just that's where the crazy trip started. And I think I could talk for hours and hours over the ceremony, because it didn't feel like a 4-hour trip, which it was at the end, or maybe just 3 hours, but it felt like years
Yeah, like a
not
lifetime.
in a bad way. It just like there was no concept of space and time anymore.
Yeah.
So, but
So for the sake of not making this go a couple days,
yeah,
what was the lesson at the end of this? Because I mean, this was an intense experience, and for you were there were a lot of emotions that were coming up. I could hear you on the other end of the Maloka. This was also when I was just fucking hysterically laughing, and then I could hear you on the other hand just crying and laughing, and just so much coming up, and I could tell it was deeply emotional. So I guess what was the the lesson after the fact that like what was that feeling that was making all those emotions come up?
First of all, it felt like all judgment towards myself, it just went away, and it made me open up for this love, this unconditional love. You were already talking about it. And first it was love for other people. I was lying on my mat in a fetus position, and I was crying for I don't know how long, but not because I was like sad or happy. It was crying because
it's just a release.
It's just a release of all those emotions I've been repressing for so long, and I was just letting all those emotions out and crying them out. And first I realized it's okay to feel any emotion.
Yeah.
Because that's what life is all about. It's our human experience to not only be happy and to love, but to be sad and to be angry, and to be tired, and whatever emotion comes up, it's okay. And
back to like what we were talking about of just letting it come up without judgment.
Yeah, exactly.
Just letting the feelings be and not trying to do anything about them, just feeling them.
Yeah, feeling them, accepting them, and appreciating them. Because if I'm always happy all the time, there would always be something missing, and I wouldn't appreciate happiness as much as I would if I feel happiness and sadness once in a while, right?
Yeah.
So how would I know what happiness is if I don't know what sadness is?
Yeah.
So, and this realization alone made me cry for a long time, because I was always labeling it as good and bad emotions. But for me, there's no good and bad emotion. Like, every emotion is part of being alive and experiencing life. Otherwise, we would just exist and not live.
Yeah.
So, and then I felt this love for my parents, my sister, for my friends, and also for people that passed away, and I could never tell them how much I really loved them, because I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to show those emotions, or so it was just like a release of all those repressed emotions. And at the end, when this crazy vision part ended and I came back in the Maloka, there was a lot of forgiveness, self-forgiveness. First, I was forgiving so many people. I was like thinking about them and forgiving them for whatever.
Yeah.
And at the end, I realized I also have to forgive myself, because that's just how it works, right?
Yep. It's always like the last thing that comes up. It's so much easier for me. And I've before I did ayahuasca, like I've forgiven everyone else for having, making me this way, or for me thinking the way I am or feeling that. I've forgiven everyone else. Like I really have. And it didn't even occur to me that I didn't forgive myself for holding this in and feeling that way. And it's so much easier for me to forgive other people than it is to forgive myself for some reason. And
yeah, totally.
I think a lot of people are the same way.
Yeah, same for me. Like, I always hold myself to the highest standards, like similar to you.
Impossible standard.
Yeah, it's always my fault, and I'm always not good enough, and yeah, I'm not worth it. And yeah, during this ceremony, I could not only forgive others, but I could forgive myself. And at that point, I could just feel this eternal, unconditional love shining through me. And it could never shine through me because I was always blaming myself.
You never let it.
I needed to forgive myself in order to truly love others and love myself. Yeah. And yeah, that's my takeaways from my second ceremony.
Yeah. Well, I think we're gonna end this one here. We have so much more that we can talk about and that we will talk about in the future. But I wanted to thank you so much for obviously coming on and, talk with me and being willing to be just so open and vulnerable about your own experience. And, you're already, you're one of my brothers, and I love you. I've got so much love for you. And, I'm excited to continue on this healing journey, knowing that you're always going to be there with me as well. Yeah, man, I appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And yeah, I'm looking forward to our next podcasts, and there's so much more to talk about. And yeah, I really appreciate you, and I feel so much respect and deep love for you. And yeah, we're brothers, and yeah, just happy for everything happened and how it turned out.
Yeah, it's crazy how, again, in the midst of all this, like, you getting kind of called ayahuasca, and me, the way that just like, the fact that we both ended up at the same place and have had these similar realizations, like, man, I don't believe in coincidences anymore.
Yeah.
Like, there's too much shit that, like, these things happen, and we were somehow meant to both meet each other at Dreamglade, and
yeah, definitely, yeah.
Crazy to think of, but hope you all enjoyed that episode with my friend and brother Kevin Owens. We had a lot of fun recording that, and I'm sure he'll definitely be back on the podcast at some point. If you enjoyed that episode, please, like and subscribe, and feel free to share that with a friend if you think that anybody can get anything out of it, or if you just enjoyed it. And if you have any feedback, please feel free to shoot me an email at tripsittingblog@gmail.com, or follow on Instagram, follow on any social media. Feel free to just DM me. I love chatting with everybody. So excited to bring you guys the next episode, and thanks for listening.